Thank you everyone for being here this evening. My name is Roni Rufian. I'm an Assistant Director, Career Counselor at the UCLA Career Center. Welcome to Careers for Environmentalists program. We have three amazing panelists here this evening. Unfortunately, Jenny, one of our panelists, had to cancel last minute because she was not feeling well, but I do have her email address and she's more than happy for you all to reach out to her. So I will be giving you all her email as well. But we do have, again, like I said, three wonderful panelists tonight. We're here to talk about their career path, their degree, in undergrad, their graduate degree, what is it that they're doing now in their profession. So we want to get to that session of the program as soon as possible. Before doing that, I do want to quickly talk about some of our services at the Career Center for those of you who are not familiar with our services, so that you have a better understanding of how you can utilize our services with your career development and trying to figure out what it is that you do want to pursue with your degree, in particular within the field of environmental science or careers within for environmentalists and so on. We are open in person and virtual, so we do have 30-minute one-on-one appointments that are available on Handshake. You access those appointments through your Handshake account. Those appointments are great for job search strategies, working on your resume, trying to figure out overall what is it that you want to do, what career path you want to pursue, mock interviews, graduate school advising, all of that. So those one-on-one sessions are really helpful for those types of appointments. We also have in-person and virtual drop-in sessions. Those are Tuesdays through Thursdays from 10 to 2. Those are shorter sessions, about 15, 20 minutes, where we can cover topics such as your resume, cover letter, and then strategies for the job and internship search. So we can walk you through Handshake and so on, and any other smaller type of questions that you may have. We offer tons of workshops such as this on Handshake. So take a look at your Handshake account, click on the events page. That gives you a lot of information as far as all the events, information, sessions, everything that's happening at the Career Center. All of that is available. I mentioned graduate school advising, so we definitely do graduate school advising if you're interested in master's programs or PhD programs. We help you as far as your personal statement, timeline, requirements, how to get letters of recommendation. So you're more than welcome to join us for those sessions within those one-on-one 30-minute sessions. And then obviously, our websites is really helpful. We have tons of great articles and digital resources. We have a lot of great resources through Handshake as well that can help you in your job search. I'll go through some of those as we go through this presentation. Feel free also, again, if you have any questions in the chat as we're going through the moderated panel, feel free to put those questions in the chat. It might get if we don't get to your question, again, you have some time to go the breakout room session, so you can go into the breakout rooms and connect with the panelists and ask those questions as well. But we'll try our best to answer your questions if you put those in there. I mentioned our online resources. Here's some of our online resources on Handshake, but I want to bring your attention to VMOC is an online resource, resume critique online resource that you can use. It's really helpful as far as formatting and helping you with bullet points and so on. So definitely take advantage of VMOC. Parker, Dewey, and Forage are great virtual paid internships and project-based opportunities. So if you feel like you need a little bit more experience, you haven't gotten that hands-on experience, definitely take a look at Parker, Dewey, and Forage, as they do allow you to participate in micro internships, mini projects, and so on, and those look really great on your resume. Firsthand is really helpful. It's an industry career guide, I call it. You go onto that link in pretty much any industry you're interested in, including careers for environmentalists and so on. There are videos on there, there are career guides on there. It's kind of like a pre-recorded information session type of a database based on different career paths, so you can learn a lot from firsthand. And then Interview Stream, which it's not called Interview Stream anymore. I did not update that list, but and I don't recall what it's called, Christina, if you don't mind putting it in the chat. It's basically a database where you could practice mock interviews, and you could record yourself as well doing the mock interviews, which is great because I have students who actually pre-record themselves answering questions, and then they've shown it to me during counseling sessions, and we've gone through and given them feedback based on their answer and so on. So all of these data resources are available free for you guys through Handshake.
It is still called Interview Stream on our website. I know they changed the name, but we haven't changed it in Handshake yet.
Got it. Perfect. So it is Interview Stream still on the website. It's the same database, so you guys can access that. For those of you who are alumni, for those of you who are seniors this year, just to have a sense of your access to our services, you do have access to seeing a career counselor, myself or Christina, up to 3 months after you graduate. So if you're graduating in June, then up to the end of September. If you're graduating in March, up to the end of June, you have access to our services for those one-on-one sessions. So take advantage of that before that time is up. Upon graduation, you still have 1 year of access to Handshake. So you'll still be able to utilize Handshake to find jobs and internships and those types of opportunities. And as long as our programming is still virtual, you should still have access to those virtual programs too that are in Handshake. But again, you want to take advantage of that one-on-one session because you only will have access to it up to 3 months after. So that was a super quick overview of our services. Are there any questions regarding our services at this point? No? All right. So we're going to open the panel up and start the moderated panel, the Q&A with our panelists this evening. I wanted to start off by thanking the panelists for being here. And what we're going to do is, actually, you know what? Let me share my screen again because I do want to have this list up here. Jenny Trebelli, unfortunately, is out sick, so she was not able to come. But she did provide her email, and I'm more than happy to put that in the chat as well. I know she is doing info sessions in a couple of weeks, but the info sessions are targeted towards grad students. So she was more than happy to provide you all her email and would be, more than happy to connect with you if you had any questions. I think my best advice for you all is take a look at a list of our panelists that are here, go on to LinkedIn, learn about who they are, their backgrounds, take in what they are talking about tonight and learn from that experience and continue building upon that relationship through LinkedIn and so on. So that's how I would want you to at least take advantage of the program this evening. So hopefully you'll be able to do that as we continue. Right. So let's go ahead and start the panel. What I'm going to do is, let's get it into speaker view. All right. So I would like to start, and Luke, I'm going to have to start with you since you are the first on my screen. If you can go ahead and introduce yourself.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about your education background. If you're a UCLA alumni, tell us, a little bit about that and kind of, activities and things that maybe you were involved in when you were an undergrad at UCLA, and a little bit about your current, position and title and what it is that you do.
All right. Hi, everyone. My name's Luke Eisenhart. I graduated from UCLA in 2012. Go Bruins. Let's see, my current job is air quality specialist at Great Basin Unified Air Pollution Control District. So at UCLA, had a great time there. I did the club ultimate frisbee and club powerlifting, which was fun. And I don't know, kind of stuck with both those things to some degree since then. Let's see, so after graduating, it was 2012, which I thought was kind of a difficult job market. It took me a while to get my first job after graduating. I started working at a small consulting firm called SWAPE. A lot of UCLA environmental science people end up working there. I did that for about 3 years, then went on to get my master's in environmental science and management at UCSB. After that, I got a job as an air quality specialist at South Coast Air Quality Management District. I did that for 2 years, and I got a very similar job up here in Bishop, California, as an air quality specialist. And here I am, loving life.
Thank you so much. Cindy, you're next on my screen.
Hi, I'm Cindy. I actually graduated UC Riverside, and I think I got hooked up with the UCLA group because someone from UC Riverside's Career Center moved over here. I used the Career Center a lot. I really liked them. When I was an undergraduate, I was able to work for the EPA and NASA through an MOU that UC Riverside had. So I really, want to highlight all the tools and resources that your Career Center can offer you while you are a student, because I wouldn't have had that same opportunity, post-graduation. Let's see, I have my undergraduate in environmental sciences from Riverside, and then I have a master's of environmental engineering from Cal State Fullerton. I graduated in 2012, so the job market was kind of the same for me. I had a lot of weird job offers of like minimum wage in a lab, stipends for a county, nothing where I was like, I have a degree, I should be able to afford to live where my job is. And ultimately I got a job with a small consulting firm in LA, working on solid waste facilities. It's like landfills, recycling centers, etc. And it's almost 10 years later and I'm still doing that stuff. I design, permit, develop, and work on ongoing compliance for large-scale industrial facilities in California and beyond. I'm now with a firm that's national, so I do work in other states. And I live in South Lake Tahoe, also live in the dream. And I'm really thankful and happy to be here to talk to you guys.
Thank you so much. And Jane?
Hi, I'm Jan Green-Rebstock. I work with the City of Los Angeles as an environmental affairs officer there. And my role is to manage the environmental review process for public infrastructure projects. So I get to work on things like the LA Zoo master plan, or the big 20-acre park under the 6th Street Viaduct, or the Silver Lake Reservoir master plan. The Sepulveda Basin is going to have a master plan coming up that's going to be fun to work on. So I do CEQA NEPA stuff, LA River projects. I've worked for the city for 20 years. 10 of it was at the Port of Los Angeles. So also CEQA NEPA permitting, but different issues there at the port, very public health issues driven, how to help facilitate the turnover of technology to manage air quality impacts, and get the stakeholder community involved in their environmental review process for projects that were happening in their backyard. So my bachelor's was in environmental studies, and I really liked the intersection of science and politics and business issues. That's why I went into it. I have a doctorate from the Price School in Policy Planning and Development. And I guess I'm living the dream too, because I have a city job, but I only have to go into the office twice a week, and I get to telecommute the rest of the time. So it's a good live-work balance.
Thank you so much. That's very, very interesting and good to know different paths. And it's always really great to hear that you are living your best life right now as far as your career. So it's good to let students know that. My next question is targeted more towards your degree. I know, for example, Luke and Cindy, you guys have your master's. Jane, you have your PhD. So if you guys kind of walk us through why you decided to pursue a graduate degree, what made you, for example, Jane, I'll start with you if it's okay. Like, what was the purpose or reason for the PhD, and just kind of the reasoning behind and how maybe that has helped you in your position today?
Sure. So I have a degree from, it's like a practicum. So it's a doctorate in practicum. I didn't get the degree to go teach in a university, but it was how can I contribute to the field that I'm practicing in? And it was actually because of the City of Los Angeles's tuition reimbursement program. They contribute up to $16,000 a year towards your graduate education. So that's how I was able to pursue the degree. And I was working at the Port of Los Angeles. We were on the leading edge of integrating organizational change towards, improved environmental practices within a container port setting. And we've contributed to the advancement of a lot of technology that's used in the cargo container, the cargo ports, and the drayage truck operations, investing money in the technology advancement programs there. So it's really kind of trying to capture that microcosm of change and how to help other ports who might be facing issues like ours, kind of give them a roadmap for doing so. So I focused my dissertation on sustainable port organizations and kind of giving them a roadmap for how can you improve, the best practices of the organizations that manage that type of operations in your setting. So I looked at Port of Shanghai and Ningbo and some other ports in Europe to kind of give them a roadmap, and did like a case study analysis. And the ports of LA and Long Beach were leading in a lot of areas. So that led me down the road of thinking about maybe doing more sustainability oriented stuff as kind of a branching off of the work I was doing at the port. I was doing sustainability plans and reports for the port as a sustainability liaison. But ultimately I went back to doing the CEQA NEPA work because it's really gratifying to see that go into project design and planning, and then have it realized in the built environment, and then seeing the community or the city use that infrastructure. So, but all the project management, all the agency consultation and coordination and analysis and focus that you kind of dwell on in your graduate studies, I found it very helpful.
Great, thank you so much, and thank you for the clarification on that as well. Great, Cindy.
Yeah, so I went for my undergraduate. Originally, I was going to go for engineering, and then I didn't want to do as much math, so I changed it to environmental science. And then at my job, I was working at an engineering firm, and my company offered to pay for me to get a master's in engineering. So I said, fine, I'll do it. And I mean, that's why I have my master's. No big ambitions, but it has helped me have more of a foundation in engineering, because I do that in my day-to-day job.
Thank you. And Luke?
All right, so I think I chose the that my undergrad major was environmental science. I chose that because I think, like a lot of people, I just like nature and wanted to do something good for the environment. So that's kind of what drew me into the field. And then I went to consulting, and I don't know if I want to say I was jaded. I just didn't want to continue with the consulting field so much and wanted to take the next career step. And I thought that a master's degree would help with that. And luckily, I was able to get the master's paid for by TAing. If you're a TA at a UC, they pay all of your tuition and give you an actual decent stipend that you can live on. So I did that. And I thought I was going to get into environmental data analysis. I was really into just data stuff. And I ended up doing a group project in my master's program on air quality at the Salton Sea, and ended up doing an internship in air quality as well. And from there, I kind of decided that air quality was a very important field. It's the #1 environmental factor in premature deaths in the world. So, and it's also an in-demand field of the environment. So I thought it was a good thing to pursue.
Thank you so much. And as the panelists are speaking, it's like hailing behind me, and there's a rainbow behind me. So very appropriate with this conversation. Great. All right, my next question is, I want you to take a few minutes and kind of think back to, undergrad. And when you were deciding, your major and the major that you went into, were there any other career alternatives that maybe you had thought about? Was there a specific situation or scenario or a person or someone that you spoke to where you're like, okay, I think this is the right path for me? What was the aha moment as an undergraduate? Because I know a lot of students that we work with, they know what major they want to go into, or they're contemplating a major, but they need that aha moment and to feel like this is the right path. And that's not always the case. So did you have an aha moment, or were there other alternative career paths that you thought about? I know, Luke, you mentioned consulting down the line a little bit after, I believe you said after you graduated, but maybe start with you, Luke, and talk a little bit about your experience in undergrad at UCLA and if there were any other options as far as your career.
Yeah. So I went into UCLA as an undeclared physical sciences major. And there was a point, at least a year or two, I think I wanted to be a physical therapist. And this is kind of a dumb answer because it's very specific to me, but I had a talk with a physical therapist who was a family friend, and he was kind of drunk and just went on a rant about how it's a terrible job and how I should be a scientist instead because I was smart. So basically that made me just rethink a lot of things, and I just kind of sat down and thought about, like, all right, what do I want to do? And kind of made the decision that I do like the environment. I think that the environmental science major at UCLA gives you a good broad background on all sorts of, I guess, sciencey, physical science type topics. And let's see, I kind of mentioned this before, but I didn't know I wanted to go into air quality specifically. And I really wanted to go into like land management, like National Park Service, Forest Service, something like that. And basically just the way the job market worked out and how difficult it was to get a federal job with the National Park Service, that kind of drove me. Life just kind of happened. Went into consulting, and like I mentioned, for the rest of it, eventually made my way into air quality.
Thank you. Cindy?
Yeah, so I don't think there was so much for me as did I want to do something else, so much as like my career path has been an alternative path in general. Because my parents are both engineers, my grandparents were all engineers, and I didn't want to get a degree in engineering and do that math. And so as an undergraduate, I was able to get internships, as an engineer, and it made me realize less doesn't really matter, what's the title on your degree, and more it matters like what you bring to the job. And so when I got my first engineering internship, and then when I graduated and got my, first professional job with an engineering title, I was like, hey, look, I can do this. I can, do whatever I want to do, regardless of kind of what is on my degree. So.
Thank you. Jane?
Yeah, I took a job offer over the phone. I was working in Houston for a small consulting firm, and I wanted to move to California. And I did a job offer, a job interview over phone, and it was to support the public outreach process for the proposed divestiture of PG&E's hydroelectric facilities and associated lands. And so the client was the California Public Utilities Commission. And this was my introduction to CEQA and water rights and water issues in California. And I was like, yes, this is what I want to do. I loved all the intersection of all the issues, the stakeholders, the colliding of interests, but also the need to find consensus, how to move forward. And then how to assess the potential environmental impacts of this proposed project. So I think that was kind of like, yes, this is the kind of work I want to do. This is what I'm interested in. And once I kind of learned about that framework, you know, I've been doing it for 20 years.
Thank you so much. My next question just goes kind of continuation of what you're talking about. If you can kind of walk me through a typical day and then overall qualifications that you see, and qualifications could be more so also maybe transferable skills that you would recommend students developing over time or while they're in undergrad, or qualifications as far as maybe technical skills that you see would be important. But kind of walk us through maybe a typical day, and then second part to that question, what are some qualifications that you really like to see in your employees or students or colleagues, that you would recommend students kind of picking up on their way?
Is this to me or?
Yes, if you don't mind.
Okay, sure, yeah. So I do a mix of division management and supervisory and project management work. So I still manage my own projects, but then also help manage the division. We have a division of 25 employees. And we work on multiple projects, so there's a lot to keep track of. But you know, I'll meet with virtual meetings with staff and project managers, engineers from our department and other city departments. Lots of agency consultations with CDFW or the Water Board or DTSC or Army Corps of Engineers. I'm trying to help with the permitting processes or issue resolution on various projects. We get to do some field work as well, some project planning. So lots of meetings, lots of consultation, lots of relationship building, and facilitating public meetings as well. And it's a mix of, like I said, telecommuting, and then coming into the office and trying to maintain those relationships face to face about 2 days a week. And in terms of skill sets, I look for people who have project management skills, that are very good communicators, that see the big picture, that also can learn how to deal with ambiguity, because in this project planning, you have to make a lot of working assumptions and then get agreement on those working assumptions so that you can then analyze the potential impacts of that work. But also have a really good line of questioning to kind of root out what the big full picture is, and if there's something that hasn't been put on the table, so that you can understand the implications of that. Because our role is we're helping facilitate projects getting analyzed and permitted, but we're also a independent third party. We wear the hat of a CEQA lead agency, so we need to be transparent and objective in that process as well. So there's a lot of nuances to that. So someone who can maintain that objectivity and also always be transparent. I'd say that's what we're looking for.
Thank you so much. Cindy?
Yeah, so I'll start with my day-to-day. So I guess, and I'm a consultant, and I guess in any given day, I touch between 5 to 15 projects in a day, whether that's sending a few emails or spending a couple hours on a project. And so because of that, the types of projects also vary. So like, there's permitting, there's design, there's construction, there's compliance, there's operations, there's finances. So you have to be able to switch between projects pretty efficiently. So one thing I look for is someone that was able to have time management skills. So like on their resume, I specifically I look for, were they a full-time student with 1 or 2 internships and involved in a student organization? Like, were they active at their university, or do they just have a degree and like nothing really else extracurricular? And then just like Jan, I look for, are they a leader? Do they have the ability to manage things or people? Because that's a really useful skill set when you're managing a project. You need to be able to coordinate and collaborate with others, utilize their strengths, recognize their weaknesses, and then, get the project executed, on schedule. So like, were you the president of an intramural soccer team? That alone says that you were a leader. And so those are the kind of things I look at when I'm hiring.
Thank you. Luke?
All right, so typical day for me. There is no typical day in the world of government air quality regulation. A lot of what I do is when some of these projects that consultants are working on, they have to get a permit from the air pollution control district if the project is going to emit some amount of pollutants. So what we do is we make sure that those pollutants aren't being emitted above a certain threshold. So make sure it's not going to harm human health or violate any federal or state laws or our local laws. So I'll look at that and then write a permit that kind of ensures that that will be the case. And then I'll go out into the field and inspect those sites. So it could be gas station, diesel engine, gold mine, geothermal power plants. So a fair amount of field work that I get to do. I also manage the smoke management program. So when the Forest Service or CAL FIRE wants to do a prescribed burn in our area, we take a look at the air quality impacts of that and approve it or give them conditions that they have to meet before they can do their burn. I also respond to complaints from the public on occasion. I do a lot of various tasks at our agency. I think Jan said she manages a division of 25 people. Our entire agency, I think, is 24 people. So it's kind of small. We get a lot of different stuff. And I haven't hired or interviewed anyone in a while. So not at my government jobs. It's that hasn't been one of my responsibilities. But I felt that every environmental job I've had, most of it can be learned on the job, and it's finding a person who is a right fit for the job. So being smart helps, being good at time management helps. I think having a bachelor's of science degree or an engineering degree is great to show that you can do some of these hard math sciencey things. If not, it's good to at least have taken a few science classes to show that. And having strong writing skills is always helpful for every job. I can't think of an environmental job where you won't have to do some form of writing or at least communication.
Thank you so much for that and the feedback and the transferable skills. I think it is really important to be able to articulate and be able to, communicate and so on. So any feedback or any advice regarding transferable skills is always helpful to hear from panelists. Luke, if I could start with you with the next question as you're on my screen, having talked about kind of like your day-to-day and so on, what do you find most challenging within like a typical project or a typical day? And what do you find most rewarding about the work that you do?
Yeah, so I kind of alluded to this before, but the most challenging part of my job is dealing with complaints from residents. It's not a skill that we get to practice very much in, outside of when it happens. So specifically complaints between neighbors. So it's really just conflict management between two people who don't like each other, and it's not really my purview to deal with. That's one of the challenging parts. So, and having to knock on a stranger's door and tell them to stop putting smoke out of their chimney or something like that. That's, I don't know, it never gets easy for me, at least. Maybe if I do it a lot more. Other challenging parts are if we get an application for something that I've never seen before. So like I said, we're a small agency. I used to work for South Coast where there were 900 employees, and everything you can think of that puts pollution into the air they have down there. And up here, it's like, oh, never seen one of those before. How do you calculate the health risk from an animal crematory? And it's like, yeah, you've got to figure out how many animals they're going to burn, basically. It's weird stuff. But I think the most rewarding part of my job is just the satisfaction of protecting the air in like this beautiful area that I get to live. It's really nice feeling like I'm doing good for the world. And also, we have a pretty good work-life balance here. And it's just, beyond your career satisfaction, I think it's important to, not kill yourself at your job so you can live a life that makes you happy beyond that.
Thank you so much. Cindy?
Yeah, I'd say the most challenging for me is at I'm currently at a 10,000 person firm. It's a little bigger than what we're hearing. But one of the most challenging things is there's a lot of administrative stuff that you have to do outside your job, like filling out forms, getting approvals, signing contracts, things that are like not really sciencey, that you just are part of the job and you have to do them. And I wish could hire an assistant to do all that stuff for me, but I have to do them. And when I was at a small firm, I had to do it as well, but it just gets more complicated. And I know government agencies have similar protocols. You're always kind of just doing that administrative stuff, and I'd rather be focused more on the sciencey things than be bogged down with like writing a proposal for a couple hours. The most rewarding part of my work, I think Jan touched on this, is when you see your projects come to life. So like I've worked on real facilities in California that did not exist. And then now they are built and operating because I got them their permits, I got them a grant, I did the design for the facility, and I can drive by and say, that's my facility. And that's really cool. And when you're working with other big clients too, it's nice to say, like, you drive around and you see your projects. And so I really like, seeing that like the work that I'm doing is impacting, my current life, in a positive way, in a positive, environmentally conscious way.
Thank you so much. Jan?
I think one of my current challenges is kind of creating organizational change, maybe related to how the environmental review process is integrated into the project delivery process in the city, and getting people to engage us early enough so that they give us enough time to do the environmental review and documentation, and it doesn't become such critical path and they come to us and say, we're going to bid an award next month, and we're saying, well, I'm sorry, you need an EIR. And trying to have that education process early, and I think we're making progress, but then contributing to that also is just the workload. So everybody's project is a priority, and trying to manage our resources best to help the projects along and get them the attention that they need. So managing the resources across the program, I think, is one of my bigger challenges, helping make that happen as efficiently as possible. And rewarding, yes, seeing the built environment kind of reflecting the planning process that you went through for so many years, but also the variety that I encounter every day. Just the variety of projects across the city, and I'm constantly learning. Last year it was understanding the biological impacts of feral cats being released into the city. So we do a population dynamics model. What would happen if we spay or neuter X number of cats? We're looking at a project proposed from the Animal Services Division. So that was interesting. And this year it's sea level rise, and trying to manage and develop models that will address the concerns of the California Coastal Commission through the CDP process. So, there's always something new to learn.
Thank you so much. Jane, kind of on the same line, when you're talking about like reward, challenges and rewards and things like that, what do you foresee your industry, or what changes do you foresee within your industry within the next couple of years, maybe 5 years, maybe 10 years, but what changes do you foresee within what it is that you're doing day to day?
I don't think CEQA is going to go away. As much as we talk about streamlining the environmental review permitting process, I do see some moves happening around affordable housing, and I just think that it's going to be here to stay. And so it's just kind of intensifying what those technical areas that are being focused on. So now, wildfire and managing the impacts of wildfire and potential impacts of development, managing that is a big one. Biological impacts of potential development, and now there's a new overlay in the Santa Monica Mountains Conservancy, so kind of like looking at that. Just, I guess, intensifying certain technical areas. Again, I mentioned sea level rise and just the city is really having to adapt and make sure that the consulting firms that provide us the support for these special studies and engaging with the agencies that are trustee agencies looking at these issues, making sure that we're responsive to their concerns. A lot of this is driven by density of urban development and climate change. And so it's just kind of really intensifying in certain technical areas when you're looking at how to plan future development. So I think that's going to continue. And just the shift, it's just shifting to focus on specific issues in those areas.
Thank you for that. Cindy, what do you foresee as far as changes maybe in the future?
Yeah, so the recycling industry is hitting a super big boom. Like right now, we just passed SB 1383. So if you Google recycling coordinator, solid waste analyst, environmental project manager, like every waste hauling company and jurisdiction in California are hiring people to do education and outreach, to do facility development and design, to do waste characterizations and hauler route reviews, to do reporting. I mean, it was a landmark legislation that came and hit my industry. And it's the organic waste trends throughout the country. So like if you don't want to stay in California, Washington just adopted their rule and they are projected to be where California is in a couple of years. So they're gonna have the same thing. Oregon's next, other states are next. And the big push is that before waste was, recycling, you have your black bin and your blue bin, you're recycling plastics and glass or whatever. And now we're trying to recycle organics. And so there's a ton of opportunity. Almost every firm I know and city and county are always hiring. It's a simple Google search. And they're good paying jobs. And like, I love it. Waste is fun. It's a lot of variety in one industry.
Thank you. And Luke?
Yeah, I do want to reiterate that waste is fun. If you've ever been to a landfill, it's like at least my little fantasy when I was a little kid, just seeing these giant bulldozers run around and crush things. Yeah, so in the air quality field, there's always more rules getting written. Air quality regulations are getting stricter and stricter. Standards are getting lower. I don't know, there might be a need for more jobs to help companies comply with these stricter rules or replace equipment with newer technology to comply. Environmental justice, at least recently, was a quick growing field in air quality. I know at South Coast AQMD, they hired a ton of people to run the environmental justice program and they would work with communities and like get out on the ground and figure out what air quality issues are important to people. I think that's a good thing. We don't do so much of that up here because we're so small. So it's hard for me to say specifically what's going on with that. But then a general industry trend, and I think this goes beyond just air quality, probably throughout all of government and probably private as well, is during the Great Recession, a lot of people delayed retirement, and a lot of those delayed retirements are now happening. So a lot of people higher up with a lot of experience are retiring from their jobs. It's a great time to get hired or to get promoted quickly in government jobs that in the past may have taken a lot longer.
Thank you so much. And Luke, just because you're on my screen, I'm gonna slowly start ending the moderated panel. My last question for you all, what do you wish you would have known before entering your career? And just final advice or thoughts that you would want to leave students with.
Yeah, so I guess before my career, I kind of wished that I'd known that it existed before, like while I was still in college. I don't know, I'm very happy where I am now, but I could have skipped a lot of the path to get there. And if I had, my pension would be worth like much more than it will be. So, oh well, can't go back and change that. I kind of discounted South Coast AQMD because it was in Diamond Bar and I wanted to live, near my friends, near UCLA and Santa Monica. Then I realized like they have these air quality management districts everywhere. And there's basically any regulated environmental field they're going to have across the US, in every city of California, every county. There's going to be some place, maybe that you want to live, and there's going to be a job you can do there if you're in the environmental field. And a lot of these places are fairly rural and may not have the same number of applicants. It can be easier to get in to a job in one of these faraway areas if you're open to it. And advice, I guess, Cleavon, and parting thoughts. I think you should definitely network. If you end up applying to Great Basin Air Pollution District, I don't think we have any openings right now, but you could say, hey, I heard a career talk from Luke Eisenhart. They'll give you an interview just for mentioning that. We don't even have to have spoken. It's pretty easy just to find any way to get a foot in the door, and it'll get you the interview. It's not always the most qualified person that gets hired. People want to hire qualified people, but they really want to hire people who they want to work with. So they want to hire likable people who are eager to learn. So apply to that job, even if you don't think you're qualified. When it says 1 to 3 years, that really means fresh out of college. Just go for it. They will waive experience requirements if they want to hire you. So go for it.
Thank you so much for that feedback. Thank you. Cindy?
Yeah, I guess what I wish I would have known before, or what I learned throughout my undergraduate and into my career, is that kind of like what Luke was just saying, it doesn't matter really if you check every box on the job application that they're asking for. It really matters what you bring to the job, your personality, your positive attitude, your willingness to learn, your ability to multitask, time management, etc. And so I do think, those are all like bullets you can put on your resume, but what shines more, because all you have is that like 1 to 2 page paper to get you in the door. And if they don't recognize your name, or, you don't have a connection with that company, you need to be able to paint that picture that you have those skills, that you are someone who can, has a good attitude, and, is able to get results and accomplish tasks and likes doing it. You need to be able to kind of articulate that on your resume. And I do say networking is important. This current job that I have, they asked for like 10 years of experience and a PE license, and I didn't have either of those when I started this company. And the guy that was hiring just had known me before, and rescinded the job posting, posted a new one so that I could apply for it and get hired at this company.
Thank you so much. Jan?
Yeah, I think the Association of Environmental Professionals is a great organization here in California. They have lots of local chapters. It's a great way to network. And what I really like are their CEQA workshops. So it's a great introduction to CEQA. And I like to hire people who have taken that class or have, some CEQA experience, but it's hard to find. So yeah, if you have a good attitude and the right skill sets and you're flexible, we're going to give you a try if you can navigate the civil service process, which can be a little exhausting. So, just be patient and feel free to reach out to me if you're interested in learning how to better navigate it. Just get on the lists and go, take the test when needed, and then be ready to wait. But once you get on an eligible list, you can be interviewed for, over 3 years as opportunities arise in the city, if that's something you're interested in. So just, be patient and stay focused.
Thank you so much, everyone. We really appreciate all your advice and feedback and being part of our panel this evening. At this point, I wanted to, again, thank the panelists and our students for being here. And we're going to stop the recording so that we can go ahead and do our breakout room. So thank you again for being here.
Okay.